Hello, I'm Debarati, a practicing psychologist practicing in the area over 18 plus years and the founder partner of Carpe Diem Insight Consultancy. Today I'm going to talk about 4 W's of counseling skills. To begin with, I would like to mention about a quote. It says, "The wonder of teaching is watching caterpillars become butterflies." Today, the talk will be divided into 4 parts. In the first section, I will be discussing about what exactly the counseling skills are. Second portion will be dedicated to why it is important to develop counseling skills. Third, when to use the counseling skills. And lastly, counseling skills to be developed for the 21st century teachers. So, to begin with, let us know what are the counseling skills. Initially, I would like to clear out certain kind of popular beliefs which we all have about counseling. The first says people who seek counseling are weak, mentally ill, or they are crazy, which is totally untrue. Nowadays, if you seek treatment, it's often viewed as a sign of resourcefulness. In my practice, I have seen that the average therapy client struggles with many of the same problems we all struggle every day: relationships, self doubt, confidence, self esteem, work life stress, life transitions, depression, anxiety, and so on. So, the preferred designation for the person in therapy is obviously client and not a patient. For that very reason, over my 18 plus years of experience, I have often said that the folks I treat in my counseling sessions are mentally healthier than some people walking on the streets who fear the stigma of mental health counseling. The secondly, many of us think that counseling is mostly just a friendly talk. To talk about it, definitely this is a myth, and there is no basis for this myth. It's often seen in literature that you pay a professional to be nice to you and care for you. The counseling relationship is a psychologically intimate but strictly professional. It is the counselor's absolute commitment and requirement of ethics and law that the relationship is limited to counseling sessions and necessary email, phone, or text contacts. The client's name and personal story are strictly confidential. Counseling as a process, it is not a passive process. Many a times we see scenes in the novels and TV shows where counselors just listen to the clients vent their emotion, nod their heads in approval, mirror back the same words are stereotypes. Are those cases in fiction where the counselor interpret clients' experiences for them instead of eliciting a client's own interpretations? With today's cutting edge therapies, clinicians and counselors are trained in experiential and therapist lead modalities that engage both parties in an interactive, collaborative process based on dialogue and the client's active engagement in joint problem solving. Together, the counselor and the client identify the problems, set the goals, monitor the progress, sometimes with homework and reading assignments as a part of the process. Thirdly, we feel that counselors have ready made solutions for all our life problems. To answer that, what is important in establishing the counselor client alliance is not what the counselor thinks is important to bring about the change, but what the client thinks is important. A good therapist tailors treatment sessions around the needs of the clients instead of plugging clients into some kind of a ready-made formula, some kind of a ready-made solutions. In doing so, clinicians listens not just to the content of the story, but for deeper themes and patterns that undergird the stories. This allows the professionals to mirror feedback based on these emerging themes and patterns that can facilitate any kind of change, not just the repetitive words and phrases that the clients supply. So, keeping these things in mind, let us see that what exactly the counseling skill is. The counseling skill helps in processing of or assisting and guiding clients, especially by a trained person on a professional basis to solve especially personal, social, or psychological problems and difficulties. There are therefore a number of aspects of counseling. For example, it is important that the counselor is trained. It is also important that the process is about helping you to find ways to deal with your problems rather than just giving advice or telling you what to do. Some facts about counseling. Here, I want to point out what, as a process, the counseling is and what counseling is not. So, as a process, counseling is to explore and accept difficulties, including stress and emotional problem. It is an act of helping the client to see things more clearly from a different perspectives. It is helping to build a relationship of trust between the client and the counselor. The counselor is not merely giving advice or being judgmental. It is not about getting emotionally involved with the client or looking at client's problem from own perspectives and value system. The second section of the talk: why counseling skills are important to us. Although counseling is relatively new as a profession, counseling services have been provided for many centuries. Counseling in various forms exists in all human societies around the globe, and the ways it is delivered vary broadly in different cultures and communities. Historically, individuals who have naturally and consistently assumed the counseling role have been the teachers. So, the relationship between the teacher and the student is central to an individual's educational experience and the growth process. Many of us can recall a teacher whom we were very close to, a teacher who helped us build our self confidence, focus, and define our goals and follow our dreams, and who counseled us successfully in a difficult moment. So, the counseling and teaching professions present similar characteristics. The important factors in helping or teaching relationships are showing unconditional positive regard to your student, be genuine to your student, the promotion of a climate of safety, the ability to be empathetic and a good listener, to understand not only the student's verbal behavior, but also their nonverbal messages, their facial expressions, their bodily language. Listening attentively to the students may be all that is necessary to resolve their concerns. Besides being the important factors in teaching, these are the important factors when it comes to counseling as well. To be more factual, we can all see that American Counseling Association promotes the counseling services to be present in all around the American society in their education system as well. So in American society, the counseling profession has been promoted. Specialized counseling programs are offered for youth and families through various community agencies. However, students in public and private schools have continued to receive insufficient guidance and counseling to complement their classroom learning. According to the regulations given by American Counseling Associations to the school, it is recommended that the student to counselor ratio has to be 250 is to 1. But when we see the facts, when we see the actual data, it shows that the US national average ratio is 478 is to 1. And some schools don't even have one full time counselor. So, definitely, there is a lack, there is an insufficiency of counseling services. So, when there is an insufficiency of counseling services in school, teachers are expected to upskill themselves in providing support to the students. Here, I would like to present a theoretical model to you all. The model name is Counseling Curriculum for Teachers, or the CCT model. The CCT model discusses the major philosophies and underlying assumptions of the counseling theories, identifying their similarities and differences with the educational philosophies and theories. For example, existentialism is underlying philosophy for both counseling and educational approaches. It also examines key concepts with respect to human development, culture, and social history as they relate to psychological and educational problems of the students. It defines the terms counselor, counselor education, teacher, teacher preparation, and describes the common ground of the teaching and counseling professions, while it also outlines the differences and similarities between the role of the teacher and the role of the counselor. It delineates, analyzes, and discusses students' rights and ethical issues affecting counseling interventions in the classroom. It assists teachers in formulating a philosophy and professional dispositions about their professional role in relation to communicating and interacting with diverse students and parents. So, teacher is the first person to listen to students' problems. They are the first one to respond and suggest ways of intervention and resolution. Secondly, academic, personal, and interpersonal problems may have a negative impact on their learning and academic performance. Thirdly, special education students have to deal not only with their normal developmental issues but also with concerns associated with their special learning needs. Fourthly, often parents turn first to the teacher for support and advice when their children encounter academic, social, emotional, and other problems. Teachers have to deal with critical incidents which affect all students' learning. Next, when a teacher can use her counseling skills. Here, I would like to present to you all one endorsement given by a teacher. Her name is Padma Mahato. She is a teacher from Odisha. Let us go through what she says. She says that teachers should counsel a student in every possible manner. Let me tell about myself. I too am having many students, to almost all students of all age group. I focus on why study is important, why marks are important, why yoga, cycling, and observation is important, why knowledge is so important. I treat them as a guardian as a friend, so that they should be comfortable and they should let out the mind speak, their heart speak. Because I love teaching, I do spend much part of my time on providing them with more questions, more methods to solve questions, etc., so that their confidence should increase. Fear and being bored from study is to be removed. Finally, counseling is very, very important. So, these are the three possible times for the teacher to counsel students. First of all, when the teacher enters a particular classroom, gets to know the students, observes the students, and identifies that there are certain kind of difficulties observed in terms of academics, in terms of socio-emotional development, in terms of behavioral needs for a particular child, the teacher decides to help out to the child. Before that, she needs to find out the cause and the factors affecting that particular behavior in the child. Then it will help the teacher to come to a conclusion, which will help the teacher to find the goals, to do intervention strategies for that particular student. Secondly, parents teacher is the first point of contact for the parents as well. So suppose some parents have reported concerns about the child progress and behavior. What the teacher does, teacher takes that particular parental concerns into account, give them an active listening, give them a patient listening, understand the concerns properly, comes back to the classroom, tries to identify that is there anything in the classroom which is the resultant, which is the factor for displaying this kind of a behavior for that particular student. Once the teacher identifies the responsibility of the teacher is to carry forward that particular information to the parent, and together in a collaborative manner, in a cooperative manner, to chalk out a plan of intervention which will support that particular student eventually. Thirdly, during emotional distress, say for example, this particular pandemic, almost it is 1.5 year, we have shifted ourselves to a virtual class. It was not easy for our students to adapt and adjust to the virtual setting academically. But eventually, they have developed their adjustment skills. They have identified the coping mechanism so that they function equally well in the virtual platform. Definitely, teachers plays an important role in it, not only in academics but also when it comes to the social interaction. The students are not being able to interact with their friends in the physical way, right? The students are not able to build a relationship with their teachers. So the kind of emotional distress, the kind of stress, the kind of anxiety, the kind of sadness they are facing, it is the responsibility of the teacher to help the student to build resilience, to develop the coping skills, to fight with this particular pandemic, and to deal with their emotional distress. Secondly, I would like to point out over here that developing sensitivity about inclusion of special needs to create a support system. Of course, whenever in the class a special needs child is included, right, it is the responsibility of the teacher to create an atmosphere, to develop sensitivities in the entire class so that the entire class becomes ready to accept that particular child with special needs, ready to include that particular child in special needs in all the class activities, and to build a support system for that particular child. Here, this is very much important as well, for a teacher to identify that in what were the scenarios the teacher himself or herself can make an intervention plan and support the student, and where the teacher needs to collaborate with the counselor, needs to seek help from the counselor to deal with a student, to support a student. So, the kind of a problem signs the teacher should look for is suicidal thoughts and hopelessness observed in the student, extreme mood shifts, irrational behavior or lack of judgment. The student is engaging in some kind of a self harm, displaying odd behavior and speech patterns. Student is having a very poor personal hygiene. There are extreme changes in the sleeping, appetite, and weight pattern for the students, decreased concentrations in academics inside the classroom, even when the class assignments are given, even when the home assignments are being given. Motivation and interest, excessive screen time use, excessive internet use, or engaging in a lot of gaming behavior. Family issues, be it an economic distress for the family, be it the family is going through a separation, social isolation, loss, relationship issues, consistent poor academic functionings. These are some of the area the teacher needs to identify and seek help of a counselor to support the child. Here, the role of the teacher is to observe, is to identify, and is to report it to the parents as well as to the counselor for help. Now, let me take you through that what are the 21st century counseling skills for teachers. Here, I'm going to talk about four counseling skills, which in the successive lectures you will get the detailing of it. I would like to start with the listening skill. Roy T. Bennett has said, sometimes all a person wants is an empathetic ear. All he or she needs is to talk it about. Just offering a listening ear and an understanding heart for his or her suffering can be a big comfort. So, with this idea in mind, we are going to discuss over here the three A's to develop active listening. Attention, the fundamental difference between hearing and listening. So, attention is the fundamental difference between hearing and listening. As I already said, paying attention to what a speaker is saying requires intentional effort on your part. Consider that we can process information four times faster than a person speaks. Yet, tests of listening comprehension show the average person listening at only 25% efficiency. A typical person can speak 125 words per minute, yet, we can process up to three times faster, reaching as much as 500 words per minute. The poor listener grows impatient, while the effective listener uses the extra processing time to process the speaker's words, distinguish key points, and mentally summarize them. While reading a book or having a discussion with an individual, you can go back and reread or ask a question to clarify a point. This is not always true when we are listening. The key is then for the listener is to quickly ascertain the speaker's central premise or controlling idea. Once this is done, it is becomes easier for the listener to discern what is most important and what is not. Of course, distinguishing the speaker's primary goal, his main points, and the structure of the speech are all easier when the listener is able to listen with an open mind. With that, we have come to the next A, which is attitude. So, even if you are paying attention, you could be doing so with the wrong attitude. The second way, telling yourself this is all waste of time is not going to help you to listen effectively. You will be better off determining an internal motivation to be attentive to the person speaking. Approaching the task of listening with a positive attitude and an open mind will make the act of listening much, much easier. So you will always need to make up your own mind about where you stand, whether you agree or disagree with the speaker, but it is critical to do so after listening. Adler proposes four questions in mind while listening. The first of all is, what is the whole speech about? Second one, what are the main or pivotal areas? What are the conclusions and arguments? Third one, are the speaker's conclusions sounds or mistaken? And fourth one, what of it? Once you have an overall idea of the speech, determine the key points and gauge your agreement, you can decide why it matters, how it affects you, or what you might do as a result of what you have heard. The third A, adjustment, as it is said, it's basically the flexibility and willing to follow a speaker. To do this well, you need the final of the three A's, that is adjustment. Often, when we hear someone speak, we don't know in advance what he or she is going to be saying. So we need to be flexible, willing to follow a speaker along until we are rewarded by the speaker reaching his final destination, while his audience marvels at the creative means by which he reached his important point. If the audience members are more intent on reaching to or anticipating what is said, they will be poor listeners indeed. With that, come to the second counseling skill, that is being non judgmental. Mother Teresa said, if you judge people, you have no time to love them. We as humans are very, very judgmental. We are constantly judging others and comparing and contrasting and checking out actions and words against what we know of human behavior. We find it very, very difficult to be non judgmental sometimes. Most effective people have the ability to look at events and not at personalities. They avoid judging a person and focus entirely on the action. Students are mortally scared of being judged. Their whole academic life seems to be aimed at pleasing someone or the other. They are constantly looking for the approval from their parents, from their teachers, and very often their peers too. It comes as a fresh surprise to them when the teacher does not judge them. The effective teacher believes that her role is only to enthuse the student to learn, to be curious, and to try his or her best. The effective teacher understands very clearly that a student who seems to have difficulties at school at the present time need not have them in future. Thus, an effective teacher does not judge the student but respond to his present performance. She or he knows that all students do not learn at the same pace or in the same way, and hence does not consider a student's inability to learn something now as an indication of failure. As I have told, that students need to feel safe from the judgment, you as a teacher needs to do needs to celebrate diversity and encourage empathy in your classroom. Provide opportunities for the students to reflect on what it might feel like to be in another situations. So what are the doables or how this can be achieved? As I have put onto the slide, the first one, highlight the strength and expect mistakes. So, offer reassurance and remind students that we learn through our mistakes. Secondly, avoid the use of sarcasm, criticism, or put downs. Carefully consider how to provide meaningful feedback to your students in a way that preserves your relationship with the student. Thirdly, when providing redirection or responding to an incident, consider your use of language. Does your language support a non judgmental stance? Problem solver rather than lecture and ask open ended questions. Use a prompt such as tell me what happened rather than what did you do. Fourthly, reflect on your own willingness to ask for and accept help. Are you willing to acknowledge and accept help without self judgment? Do you model and reinforce your students' a willingness to ask for help? And lastly, teach and encourage students to ask for help. This may take some time, but through modeling, check ins, and consistency, students are likely to feel safe from judgment and feel safe to ask for what they need for. The third skill I would like to point over here is observation. Maria Montessori has pointed out that we cannot create observers by saying observe, but by giving them the power and means for this observation, and these means are procured through education of senses. Having said that, observation gives teachers the first hand knowledge about the students' behavior, their mindset, their attitudes, and interests. Observation can be of various types. First of all, controlled observation, where the teacher identifies the behavior, select a particular classroom time, or select a very structured environment to observe those identifying behavior of the students. Observation can be naturalistic, where the behavior happens in a naturalistic situation and the teacher selects the behavior as it occurs. In this particular occasion, the behavior as well as the teacher's observation may be responsible for the other factors which are already present in that particular environment. Observation can be participants, so teacher is involved in active teaching learning process. So while teaching a particular concept, while giving them an assignment, while making them do some kind of a classroom activity, the teacher may observe the student behavior. Observation can be non-participants as well, wherein the teacher is not involved in active teaching learning process in the classroom, but the teacher is very much present by the virtue of observation. Now it comes to record and usage of tools for observation. It is very, very important for the teacher to identify the tools of observation and how the teacher is going to record his or her observation. Now, the teacher can develop their own tools for observation. Mostly in the classroom scenario, teachers do use checklists, co constructed criteria, that is, anchor charts, portfolios, conferring, interviews to probe student thinking, self assessments, students' goal setting, running records, etc. etc. When we talk about the classroom observation done by the teachers, We always talk about the objective observation. The basic difference between a mere observation and the objective observation is the teacher beforehand knows in objective observation what are the behaviors of the student she or he is going to observe, when she is going to observe those particular behavior of the student, and what methodology he or she going to opt to do the observations. At the same time, the teacher needs to be aware of the FIDs of the behavior while observing a student. FIDs basically refers to frequency, intensity, and duration. The teacher needs to know that how frequent a particular behavior is happening for a student, how intense that particular behavior is, and how long that particular behavior persists. So this particular kind of an information given by the teacher, be it to the therapist, be it to the counselor, be it to a professional or a parent, will help to assess the child in a proper way and to plan a proper timely intervention strategy for that particular student. Last but not the least, I would like to talk about empathy as a counseling skills for teachers. Mohsin Hamid has told empathy is about finding echoes of another person in yourself. Children and teenagers are naturally have the capacity for empathy, but that doesn't mean they develop it on their own. They learn how to notice, how to listen, and how to care by watching and listening to the adults and peers. And they take cues from these people about why empathy is so important. All the school adults, including teachers, bus drivers, maybe cafeteria workers, administrators, and whomever present, play a role in helping students develop and display empathy. One role the school adults can play is helping students expand their circle of concern. People are inclined to feel more empathy for those who are similar to them or in close proximity to them. But when it comes to building a school community and developing caring student, that's not enough. In strong school communities, students have empathy for everyone, including those who are different in their background, in their beliefs, and in many other ways. When educators shows that they care about everyone in the school community and expect students to do the same, it can help students to open their eyes and ears to others, including those who are sometimes treated as invisible. So, empathy basically builds positive classroom culture, empathy strengthens community, empathy prepares students to be the leader of the community. Another important role is encouraging students to take the leap from having empathy to acting on it. Too often, we assume that young people will automatically know what to do when they feel concern for a peer, for an adult, and then do it. But when all sometimes fall into that empathy action gap, when we care about a person or cause, but don't do anything to help, educators can help young people overcoming this gap by modeling and encouraging them to take action. Whether it's standing up for someone who is being teased in the classroom, be it helping to solve a particular academic problem, or simply listening to someone who is feeling down. Thank you.